Hello and welcome. My name is Tom. This is the Enthusiasm Project, Season 4, Episode 5. And today is the third installment in what sort of accidentally became the YouTube business trilogy of episodes, which I actually really have enjoyed. It's been a hugely beneficial process for me. And that's what it's all about, right? Is how the podcast benefits me as an individual. But it really has been to kind of go through with a more analytical eye and look at all these different things. But also, I've been getting so much positive feedback, so I really appreciate that. Anybody who's sent me messages or emails or whatever to let me know how these episodes have been helpful to you. It's great to know that, and that's why we've continued. So if you haven't heard the other two, I definitely recommend you go listen to them. I don't think it really matters which order you listen to them in. So if you start here, you're already playing this episode, let it keep playing, and then go back and listen to the other ones. But 2 weeks ago, I did an episode where I broke down the business side of my YouTube channel and how it creating an LLC, opening bank accounts, and structuring it so that way everything, it could actually handle revenue. And last week, then I broke down the revenue streams, currently which there are 10. And just how, literally piece by piece, how much money they earned last year, the highs and the lows, what each one is, how they set up, why I chose them. Because there's so much more than just, ad revenue. It's just one small part of the puzzle. And as I was doing that, as I was wrapping up last week's episode, I realized, you know what? If we're going to talk about revenue, we should probably talk about expenses. And I asked if that would be interesting, and I got quite a bit of feedback saying, yeah, for sure. We'd love to hear about what the expenses are. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to start with the disclaimer that I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an expert in this area. I'm just sharing with you where I'm at this point in my journey, what I've learned along the way, and I hope that will be helpful in some way. And these things will change too. And especially I am absolutely, when I say I'm not a financial advisor, I mean I am not a financial advisor. I try my best with money and stuff, but I have my little sheet here with my calculator, and I've added everything up and done some math, and I think I did a pretty good job, but I might have made some mistakes. So if you notice my math is off, it is what it is. You should still have a pretty clear ballpark figure. But it's been really cool. And going through these expenses has also, kind of brought some specific lessons to light. So I'll be happy to share all these with you. And again, this doesn't mean that you need all of these, that this is going to be your expenses if you're doing anything similar to what I'm doing. It's just kind of where I'm at right now. They will absolutely change as time goes on. And yeah, so a couple notes here. What I've done is I've gone through every expense that I have for my channel. And some of them are paid annually, like web hosting, for example, and some of them are paid monthly. So Adobe Creative Cloud is a monthly subscription. So I took them all, I added it all up into the yearly total, the current annual total, and then I just divided that by 12 to get, how much money each month goes to cover those things, and then worked with some of the revenue numbers that we talked about last week. So we'll kind of get into all that. I'll basically do what I did with the revenue breakdown, go through each expense, explain it, talk about the cost, and then move on. But I know that might not be the exactly accurate way to do it. So as we're going through some of these things, it's really, really important to know, especially for your annual subscriptions, when they renew. A lot of times, if you went crazy when you got started or when you get started, I'm going to start my channel, I'm going to sign up for this, this, and this, then oftentimes that means you'll have one very expensive month throughout the year because everything comes due at the same time. But if you've done it organically, I don't want to say that that's not organic, but if you've done it sort of as things popped up, you got them, maybe you signed up for a music service, and then a few months later you signed up for web hosting, and a few months later you signed up for a software subscription. And those are annual things. That means those annual expenses will be portioned out, throughout the year. So it's just important to remember when your subscriptions renew. I know my Artlist subscription renews every July. So that's another $200 that I have to factor in for July. But if I break that $200 down over the course of the year, in theory, I should be able to, as long as I'm putting away at least this much every month, that money will be there when the time comes to renew Artlist. So, I guess the best place to start is just at the beginning, right? Just sort of jump in and see where things are. So we talked about Artlist. Let's start there. That Artlist was the first actual investment I made in my channel. I think I've talked about that before, and that was a big deal, not just because it was necessary. Royalty-free music. Artlist also has amazing licensing that lets you use their music in client projects, commercial projects. Like, you can basically use Artlist music anywhere in perpetuity. So even after you cancel your subscription, you can still use the songs that you downloaded while you had a subscription. They don't have the biggest library of music of any of the services, but it is growing all the time. It's high quality songs, and that license is like impossible to beat. So Artlist was the first thing I invested in. The YouTube audio library, though, I gotta say, if you're looking for royalty-free music, it is also only getting better and better. They add, hundreds of new songs every month, and they're all royalty-free. You can monetize them. They're not really songs that you would use in client projects or anything like that, but if you're just creating on like the YouTube platform, you might be able to get by with the YouTube audio library through your Creator Studio for free, and you can probably find some pretty good stuff there. But my Artlist subscription is $200 a year. Absolutely worth it every penny. I don't even think twice about renewing that every year. And if you remember, it's sort of funny because Artlist is also one of my revenue streams. So throughout the year, I'll tend to make on average, I don't know, somewhere between $7,000 to $10,000 from Artlist. Well, maybe not, something like that from Artlist for affiliate stuff throughout the year. And so if you factor that in, then the $200 is a very easy, it covers itself, I guess I should say. That's $200 every year, every July. I also do have a website hosted through Squarespace, which I always laugh because, like if you watch a YouTube video, Squarespace is like the sponsor of half the videos on YouTube. But Squarespace is great. I've been using Squarespace since 2010. I've built multiple personal websites. This is not an ad, by the way. I built multiple personal websites. I built professional websites through them. I love them. I'm banned from using Wix, by the way. So I don't like Wix, and I'll say that right here. But Squarespace I absolutely love, and I always just kind of turn to them when I need a website. So that's where my personal website is built, which has been interesting because when originally having my personal website was almost just like a landing page. Like you would go there and it would just sort of be like, here's my YouTube and my social media and a contact form. And that's it. And over the past year and a half, I've tried to build out the website. It's not that it's like full featured, but there's more info there. That's where you can book consultations. There's a media kit. There's that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to actually, I don't say grow the website because I'm not really paying attention to analytics on it, but make it serve a useful purpose. But either way, whatever I choose to do with it, it's $144 a year. I guess I have so many URLs registered to me from different things throughout the years. I didn't factor those into these expenses. I just realized it's $12 and $20 from here or there annually. I should have done that, but I didn't. So sorry. I probably spend, I don't know, $80 to $100 a year on URL registration. Maybe I can factor that in at the end here. I didn't even really think about that till right now. But I know I said this and I don't mean to go on a tangent, but let me tell you why I am not allowed to use Wix anymore. Because if you're thinking of using a web host, I've had to reach out to Squarespace support a handful of times over the past decade, and they've always been super polite, mostly helpful. Sometimes they'll just go here's a link to an article on our forum or whatever that's actually not the question I asked. So that's not super helpful. But for the most part, they're pretty helpful. You get a response from an actual human within a day. I like that. Wix, on the other hand, is it sort of seems similar to Squarespace. You got these cool templates. Wix is super easy to use. You really can make a good looking website in no time using it. So I had no problem with the actual use of it. I actually really liked it. But about 5 years ago, I needed to make a website for the school where I work. And I knew this was going to be more, it wasn't going to be my personal account or anything. but I was getting it started. So I decided to use Wix because it's so easy and user-friendly that I figured when another teacher or somebody takes over the website, it would be super easy for them. So I set it up with Wix, bought the URL, paid for hosting, all that kind of stuff, built the little website. And then sometime within that first year, I guess, our school district decided that we couldn't use a service like that. We had to do everything through Google Sites because school districts are always behind the times on everything. And so we couldn't use that website anymore. And that was fine. So somebody else took it over, started building a website, but it was set to auto renew. And so it auto renewed for whatever the price was. And I was like, oh, shoot, like I should have logged into my account and turned off auto renew. But I just, it had been like 7 months after I built the website. I didn't think about it. So that's my fault. I can admit that. But I went into billing. It was like that. Oh, dang. I needed to do customer service. I needed to reach out to customer service. This was before I understood social media the way that I do now. If I were in the situation today, I'd probably just literally like reach out to them on Twitter and I would likely get a response quicker. But I tried to do it through the website, doing support tickets, never got any responses. And then I tried searching for like email contacts, phone number. I couldn't find any way to actually contact them that wasn't just like, go to our support forum. Like I couldn't find a way to actually get in contact with anybody. And I tried really hard for days and days and days. And I'm telling you, this was in like 2016, 2017. They could have changed that by now, but I don't know. So anyway, I couldn't get in touch with anyone. They charged me like $150 or something. So I said, okay, like I've tried really hard. I'm going to go to my credit card. I'm going to dispute the claim. And I did that. And literally within like 2 hours of me disputing the claim, I got an email from Wix that was like, here's your refund. And I forget exactly how they word it, but they said, please note that due to this dispute, you will be barred from using Wix services in the future. Like, have a good day. And I was like, wow. So when I needed to reach out to you, you were almost non-existent. But as soon as I talked to the credit card company, you not only got in touch with me, but then you told me that I'm not allowed to use your services anymore. And it's fine because I would never want to use them again after that. Wix sucks. And there you go. That was not related to anything, but like, the point is, that's why I use Squarespace, and I'm happy to spend my $144 a year on my Squarespace website. Speaking of websites, though, next expense. When was this? October or November of last year when I started doing hourly consultations. An absolute nightmare for hourly consultations is to do email back and forth with people. When are you available? I'm available here. Oh, okay. What about this time, that time, or this? It's a nightmare. So if you're doing any kind of appointment booking on your website, a lot of people use Calendly. Squarespace built in a scheduling application. It's actually through Acuity Scheduling, which is kind of like Calendly. And I just signed up for that, which was a separate service. So it basically puts a calendar on your website and people can book appointments. They can pay right through there. You can send them messages. You can create an email chain of like how the confirmation emails work, how the reminders work. In my case, it also automatically creates a Zoom meeting. So if I log into my Zoom account on the app, everybody who books a consultation, their meeting is already there with a day and time. It throws it onto my calendar right away. It's super easy the interface is honestly kind of a little like old school looking. It feels a little like 2004-ish, but the functionality is great. And you can easily do like open hours, closed hours. So I went through and opened up my consultation hours every month, and you can even set it like people can only book 60 days in advance. I don't want someone booking up November and January or something, because how can you plan around that? And that's been great. There's different plans. It's an add-on cost to your website, so it's not included with your website. I'm in like the middle plan. I forget what it's called. It's not like the emerging entrepreneur. But anyway, whatever it is, it's $276 a year, which I didn't want to spend that much. But the reason I bought that plan instead of the cheapest plan was because it did allow me to accept payments more easily. It did allow me to create Zoom links, like all of those like really helpful features it allowed me to do. And it also allowed me to have multiple calendars. So I have like my consultation calendar, which is through the website, but I also have like a private podcasting calendar. So if I want someone to be, if I'm working with someone to either have them be a guest on my podcast or they want me to be a guest on theirs, I can send them a link to that calendar and they can just book the time that's available. And it just avoids those very annoying email back and forth of trying to find dates and times. And then in the case of actually working with clients and people who are paying, it makes it there's a paper trail. It invoices them right away. They pay right away. There's disclaimers. So I have a little thing about, you read and agree to the rules. If you don't show up for your meeting, you just missed it. It's not like you get a refund if you don't show up. You have 24 hours to cancel before the meeting. If you're 15 minutes late, the meeting is considered missed. Those kinds of things that people would need to agree to before they sign up. That's all there. So that was $276 a year. My consultation rate is $200 an hour. So, 1.5 consultations paid for that. That's not bad. And that was just sort of a necessity. Like I said, a lot of people use Calendly, which I did find more, it was more user-friendly, and it was very, visually appealing a little bit more than the way the Squarespace scheduler works. But the Squarespace scheduler, I just like the way that it works, and it's already integrated into the website, and it works fine with me, and it's infinitely customizable. So I enjoy that quite a bit. Excuse me, I don't know what the heck that was. All right, next expense would be Google Suite. So if you've got a YouTube channel, you no doubt signed up via a Google account. So, your name at gmail.com, and that's what goes to your YouTube account. But if you have a business or you're growing your channel or anything like that, I would really recommend kind of going away from using a Gmail account. Gmail's great, but there's a very big difference when someone gets a thing that's like your name at gmail.com versus your name at yoururl.com. I just feel better sending an email as Tom at hi-my-name-is-tom.com, which is hilarious because it kind of rhymes, but also it just, I don't know. There's something about it that I just feel is a little bit more professional. I strongly recommend it. It's still Gmail, you're paying for Google Suite, so those accounts still have their, it still has all the things, Google Docs, Google Drive, Google Sheets, the whole deal. You're an administrator, so if you have multiple users, you can go in, and if you have employees or something, you can manage it. But it's just me. I do have Google Suite on 2 URLs, 2 domains. So the enthusiasmproject.com and hi-my-name-is-tom.com. I have Google Suite on both of those, so I have emails for both of those. And I only have one active email account. I'm the only person. So each one is $6 a month. That comes out to $12 a month total. So that's $144 a year on Google Suite. And it's absolutely worth it. Definitely would recommend it. A little bit of funky pain sometimes to set up, but it's not too bad. The next expense would be Ecamm Live. This is a relatively new one for me, probably October, November. Signed up for Ecamm. Oh my gosh, I live on Ecamm. Every time I'm using Zoom, whatever you're seeing is being run through Ecamm. If we're doing YouTube streams, it's run through Ecamm. I've even gotten to the point where if I'm doing a short video for Patreon or something, I just record it in Ecamm, so I don't even have to take the memory card out of the camera. Plus Ecamm, you can do all the overlays, you can add comments on screen, you can do interviews. Ecamm is amazing. The community behind it's amazing. It's a little bit expensive. I had to get the Pro plan because the Pro plan is the one that lets you use the virtual webcam. If you've seen any of my videos about Ecamm, the virtual webcam feature is the thing that lets you use it with Zoom or FaceTime or whatever other application. And so that, for me, I searched the internet and found a discount code. So I got 10% off. It came out to $365 a year, which is a lot of money, and it was more than I was planning on spending when I signed up, but I justified it as that is literally $1 a day. Absolutely worth it. I mean, I use Ecamm basically hours a day, at least 5 days a week, and totally pays off for me. And just the quality of live streams and classes and stuff how I've been able to upgrade everything through Ecamm, absolutely worth it in my opinion. So $365 a year for Ecamm. Next expense would be rev.com for captioning on my videos. There are a few different services that do captioning. Rev was the first one I ever heard of. At this point, I've done hundreds of videos through them, and I've never had an issue. They're even super cool. I think I made a video where I was talking about Rev, and then in the comments, somebody wrote, "Oh, hey, I was the person that captioned this video," which is funny. So that's the beauty of it, is you have the option to have an actual human being type in captions for your videos. And there's a few reasons you might want to do that. YouTube does do auto-generated captions, and it's gotten better and better at them. So if you looked at YouTube captions like 6 years ago, it was like gibberish nonsense. If you look at YouTube captions today, they're okay. Sometimes it can be confusing, but you can usually at least understand what the heck is happening. However, if you're someone like me who does a lot of like wordplay and puns, auto-generated captions aren't always the best. Or if you are somebody who talks about specific terminology, specific pieces of equipment, like if I'm talking about Canon EOS R, Sigma 24 1.4, Rodecaster Pro, and blah, 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 like very specific model numbers and technical terms and stuff, auto-generated captions tend to mess that stuff up because they don't know those terms. And so having an actual person do it, you can caption stuff yourself, but I don't hate myself, and I don't want to put myself through that. So that sounds like a nightmarish experience, and I don't want to do that. So I use rev.com. They do have an auto-generated option, which is a little cheaper. I've never used it. I've always done the human being option. I think their official timeline is like I feel like it's within 24 hours, maybe even less. I feel like I've never had to go more than 12 hours after submitting a video for it to come back captioned. And oftentimes it's like way less. It might be like 4 or 5 hours, which is great. And I schedule my videos in advance, so it's not a big deal. I upload my video as unlisted, and then I go to my account on Rev, which is connected to my YouTube channel, so I can just click on the video, order captions, and then I just wait for the email that says your caption file is ready. They upload it automatically, so I don't even have to upload the file, but they do also then in your Rev account give you access to the SRT file, which is the caption file. So you could take it, you could download it, you could use it on a different platform if you want. It's just the file that's there for you for that video. I've had to do that once when I uploaded a video, got it captioned, but then I realized there was a video glitch in the video, like it blacked out and went green or something for a second. So I had to fix that and re-upload it. And then I had to, since I already had the caption file, I just uploaded it manually. But Rev has been absolutely terrific. They've been very good about like everything is grammatically correct, and they've been good about model numbers. I feel like they must sometimes when I talk about specific things, that maybe they even go so far as like Google something to understand what I'm talking about. They do a great job. I can't recommend them enough. And let's see. Oh, they also do transcription. So if you're doing like a podcast or I don't know, a speech or an event or something, and you want a transcription of it, they'll do that. It costs for a human to do it $1.25 a minute. My videos are typically between 9 and 18 minutes long, usually, sometimes less, sometimes more. So for this cost, I averaged it to be $15 per video, like average video length. If you take all of them, about 15 minutes, some less, some more. And I do 4 videos a month because I do a video every week. So that would be $15 a video, 4 videos a month, times 12 months is $720 a year on captions. I can tell you that the captions do not make that money back. That's like a straight up expense. There was a time a long time ago on YouTube where I think people said that if you had captions, it would help. Like the fact that your video was captioned would show it up in search results or browse features more often. Or if your video was captioned and the caption file itself was like a SEO document that contained everything in your video, and so it would help that. I have not found that to be true at all. I've found no difference between captioned and uncaptioned videos. If you look at most of the videos on the YouTube trending page or videos that have millions of views, the vast majority aren't captioned manually. So I don't think that has anything to do with growth or discoverability, but it does make your videos more accessible. And like, if you think of, there's a lot of people who just enjoy using captions in general. It's, for whatever reason, when they watch something, maybe it's loud in their environment or whatever, having captions on just really helps, so you know that your video's accurate. I have gotten comments and emails from people with hearing disabilities who say thank you for putting the captions because it makes things easy. And I can only imagine if you're somebody in that situation and you're used to seeing these like inaccurate auto-generated captions, and now you see something that's accurate and grammatically correct, it probably feels pretty good to be able to easily read and understand the video. And I've also gotten a lot of messages from people over the years that I've been doing this who speak other languages other than English, and they've said thanks for the captions because it makes it really easy to translate. I'm not sure how they're translating it, but I guess either maybe because the caption file itself is uploaded or because the captions are just higher quality. If somebody speaks a language other than English, it makes my videos more accessible to them in some way, and that's awesome. I love that. It's sometimes I'll get comments in different languages, and like because Google Translate has gotten so much better over the years, I can understand the comment more easily, and then I can respond in a way that is like mostly correct, or at least they can understand what I'm trying to say. And that's super cool because now these language barriers that existed previously, like they don't exist anymore. Anybody can communicate in any way, and then you just communicate back, and it doesn't matter what language it's in. It's awesome. And so if having manual captions on a video helps that to happen, I am more than happy to spend that money to invest that money into the channel, even though it doesn't increase. I'm sure you could correlate some kind of growth, like, oh, well, this number of people from other languages or with hearing problems subscribe because of the captions. But I don't think that's a very huge number. I just think it's a great thing. It makes the videos more accessible to more people, and that's awesome. So I'd really recommend that if you could put that in your budget. Next, moving on, I use Soundly for sound effects. So websites like Artlist has a sound effects subscription you can add. The YouTube audio library has sound effects. Epidemic Sound has sound effects. But I have found Soundly to be my personal favorite, just for the quality of the sound effects, the variety of the sound effects. And then Soundly is like a little app you download, and you find the sound effect, and you can just like select the part that you want, and then you just literally drag it directly into your video editing software. You don't need to like download it, and it's just drag and drop. It's so quick and easy. If you're making a video and you're like, oh, I really could use this sound right here, you don't have to spend 20 minutes going through a whole process. It's just so quick and so easy. You can save favorites and basically make like playlists of sounds. I really like Soundly. I've been using them for several years. I learned about them first on Film Riot probably like 2 or 3 years ago. Soundly is $14 a month, so that's $168 a year. Absolutely worth it. You know, little sound design, things like that. Whether or not you're using Soundly, just taking the time to use more sound effects, not in a cartoony way, but in a way that kind of pushes up your video, really makes a difference. You know, you're doing a transition, having a little low like sound really does help. I did a lens review a few weeks ago for the Canon RF 50mm 1.8, and I had a lot of fun because I did so much like sample footage with that lens. There was one shot I remember I pointed at the sky and filmed a plane flying overhead like towards some clouds. And then I went to Soundly and got like, you know, the sound of a plane flying, the sound of outdoor, you know, atmosphere. And then at one point, like a bird flies through the shot. So I got like a quick bird sound, like mix it all together. Nobody will ever notice this, but it just makes the whole thing a little higher quality. And I think at least on a subconscious level, those little things really do add up over time. So I use Soundly. I did mention just now, though, Epidemic Sound, which I do use. Epidemic, when I joined their affiliate program, they did offer to give me my Epidemic account for free. So I was paying for Epidemic, and they are monthly. I think it was $15 a month. And then when I joined their affiliate program, they gave me the account for free. So that's why I'm not including that as an expense, even though I use them and I did pay for them. Artlist, I'm on their affiliate thing, but I also pay for Artlist. So, but then it pays for itself. It's this weird thing. It's like Animal Crossing when you go into the shop and you're like, hey, here's a seashell. Give me some bells. And they give you bells. And then you give the bells back to buy like a chair or something. And you're like, I don't know how this worked, but it seems to work. So anyway, Soundly, $168 a year. And I should mention too on this list, podcast hosting, Buzzsprout. I talked about this before. Buzzsprout is a paid platform where I host my podcast, but when I joined the creator program, which I talked about last week, they offered my accounts for free, so I don't have to pay for my Buzzsprout. But if you're doing podcasting on a platform that's not Anchor, you'd probably have to pay for podcast hosting. Just something to be aware of. The next expense goes back to the first of these 3 episodes, and that is the LLC. The LLC that Heather and I formed costs in California $800 a year to register. California is pretty high. We were looking just yesterday in Nevada. LLC registration is $75 a year. So this is the California price. Wherever you're at, you might have a different cost there. I mentioned earlier Adobe Creative Cloud. I don't know how I got on this plan. I must be because I'm a teacher. I got the education discount. I've been on Adobe Creative Cloud since they switched to their stupid subscription model, which I'm clearly not a huge fan of. But it's $30 a month, and I have the one that just has all the applications. So $30 a month is $360 a year for Adobe stuff. Yeah, I mean, I have thoughts about Adobe. You probably don't need to hear them. But part of my job is also being the administrator of a 500-seat Adobe Cloud license, and it sucks. And renewing the subscriptions is terrible, and getting everybody set up is awful. And I really miss the days when I could just install Photoshop on a computer, and then whoever used that computer could use Photoshop, the end. And their subscription model sucks and is a nightmare. And Adobe software can definitely be glitchy and buggy, but it's really cool. And Adobe engineers can really do some magical stuff. And I love that. I just hate Adobe's business side of things. You don't need to know that. It's not relevant right now. But anyway, I do pay for Adobe every year. And then last year when we talked about revenue streams, I talked about Genius Link. So that's another expense. Genius Link, for me currently, costs about $60 a month. So that would be $720 a year. The cost of Genius, you sign up for a plan when you sign up, and it's based on how many clicks your links get. And then if you go beyond that, it just like scales up your costs. So currently, all of my Genius links combined are presently generating about 56,000 clicks a month. Which comes out to $60. And like I mentioned last week in the revenue episode, there is nothing that's not a house payment that I would spend $60 on. That's a lot of money to spend every month. But the revenue from Genius Link, from like being able to use international Amazon stuff more easily, it easily covers the $60, so it ends up being worth it in the end. But that's about $720 a year. Other expenses and things to consider. Taxes, I talked about this last week, or maybe it was the first week, the first episode. 50%, especially because I am in California and it is my first year doing an official business. I'm super conservative with saving for taxes. I just save 50 cents of every dollar right into savings for taxes. So that's not really, it is an expense, but it's just something to be aware of. There are also things I know that are upcoming. So I've mentioned that I'm working on a podcasting course. And if you want to join, just go to himynameistom.com/waitlist to get all the updates. But once that course is done, I will need to put it on a platform like Podia or Teachable. Actually, I'm going to use Podia. I'll probably need to get things like ConvertKit or lead pages. Well, actually, my email list that I'm generating right now is through ConvertKit, but it's the unpaid version. But once the course is up, there's things like ConvertKit, lead pages. There's things you kind of need to let an online course be a self-sustaining thing that can run in the background that are more monthly fees. I don't have those set up yet. I've seen Heather set them up for herself. They can definitely be kind of pricey. I'm just mentioning that because some of you might be putting together a course, or maybe you've already done it. And I'm just pointing out that's why those expenses aren't factored in yet. But in the next few months, they probably will be. This also This list of expenses also does not count existing stuff that I had. So, I have gear. I buy gear sometimes, but at this point, like if I'm buying gear, it's usually for, I don't want to say for funsies, but it's usually like it's because I want something new. Like I'm using a Shure Super 55 microphone right now. It's like the first thing I've recorded with it. I really love it. I don't know. Hopefully this doesn't sound terrible. If you look up the Shure Super 55, it is like, it's like the old school retro microphone, and it's amazing. I love this microphone, and it has blue pop filter foam, so it's great. But it wasn't a super necessity, but I will use it to make a video and stuff, so it definitely counts as business things. Every once in a while, I need something specific, like redoing the lighting in my studio to use dedicated video lights. But in general, I'm not really including equipment expenses here because most stuff I already had before there was a business. And it's not really a monthly thing, but there are equipment costs that come up. And things like Final Cut Pro, I bought my Final Cut license in 2012, and it's the same license I've been using ever since. It's the beauty of non-subscription models for things like that, Adobe. So anyway, there's that. And also, this list doesn't include, since I work from home, for business related stuff, YouTube things. This doesn't count like mortgage and utilities. Like obviously I do have to pay for the electricity to run all this stuff, have to pay for the house where the studio is, that stuff, pay for the water. Those aren't included in this list, but that's the basic, that's kind of the basic rundown of everything. So the next step then is to dive in to how these expenses then relate to the revenue and the income that I get. So all of these together then, I ended up adding in just the $100 a year for URL registration. So all of the totals I told you, plus the $100 for just different URLs that I have, comes out to, which is just a hilarious coincidence, $3,999. Sounds like it's on sale or something. So I hope you're okay with me just rounding that up to 4,000 to make the math easier. And I took the 4,000, so that would be total then, currently, to run my channel the way that I do, not counting equipment, it costs $4,000 a year. And I know it's kind of unfair to not include equipment because it is a big part of it, but I want this to be helpful to other people. And if you're doing a channel that's not equipment based, it might not be super relevant because you could still, run your channel with some of these things like web services, subscription plans, software, that sort of stuff, which I think is more universal than just if you're doing the exact same thing I'm doing. So anyway, $4,000 there. That is the main amount. I took 4,000 and then I divided that by 12, which comes out to $333.3 repeating cents. So $333 a month altogether to run the channel, which is not bad. Like that's a pretty low cost if you really think about it. Now, actually, as I'm thinking of this, I just had an idea. So just for full disclosure, when I talked about like housing expenses, our living expenses, mortgage, electric bill, insurance, gas, like all that stuff, groceries, just existing comes out to about $3,000 a month, which is times 12, $36,000 a year. I didn't need to do that times 12. So if you wanted to do that, oh wow, it's so weird, 3,000. If I were to add in those costs, that would make it $3,333.3 repeating. How bizarre. So that would be like the amount that the channel needs to make to survive. But I'm kind of getting in the weeds now. But anyway, forgetting that, what I just said, we have $333 a month. So let's look at what we talked about last week and revenue. I mentioned that from November to December, there was a big jump in revenue on my channel from 6,000 something to like 9,000 something dollars. A huge jump, which made sense because the holidays tend to be, a big time. But I am happy to report when I totaled everything up for January, It was less than December. I believe December off the top of my head was something like $9,500. January was like exactly $9,000. I think it was $9,005 of revenue, which was a shock to me. I expected January to go way, way down, and that was very encouraging. So since I don't know, like I don't have enough data to do the actual trend on where my channel is in terms of revenue right now, I kind of just guesstimated it at $8,500, thinking that some months might be higher and some months might be lower. So for right now, we'll just say $8,500. So if I take the $8,500 a month that the channel earns and subtract the $333 that it costs to operate, that leaves $8,167. So that's what's left over. Now, I did mention, which is great, I would love to just get $8,000 in cash every month, but that's not what happens. Because as I mentioned, I take half of that and put it into savings for taxes and stuff. So of that $8,167 divided by 2 equals $4,083.50. That's the actual remainder. But if we want to even take this a step further and go back to my goal that I kind of tentatively have mentioned of maybe what if my channel were a full-time thing? Like, is that sustainable? If I take the $3,000 that it costs us to just live every month and subtract that from $4,083.50, the actual remainder there is $1,083.50. I like that these just sort of happen to be kind of whole numbers or, easy numbers to work with. So when all is said and done, even if the channel were to pay for living expenses, in theory, there could be $1,000 left over every month. Now I say in theory because I am sure I have made a mistake along the way. And also, if that were my sole source of income, that does not include expenses like health insurance, paying into retirement, creating an emergency fund for savings, just having fun. Remember fun? It was a thing people used to do. You could just I'm going to go to Disneyland and pay money and stuff. Doesn't include that kind of stuff. So to me, what that says is right now, that's not quite enough to get there, but it's close. It's really close to kind of edge by. Of course, me being the person I am, I don't want to just scrape by. I want to have a nice safety cushion there. So that's just kind of interesting. That's basically where we're at right now. The channel's definitely making more money than it costs every month, which is a good thing. And maybe some of the expenses I've shared today are things that you didn't think of, or things you forgot about, or things that might be helpful to you. So I hope that's helpful to listen to. There's a few other things, though, that I do want to point out. Something that's really cool and why I don't just drain my business checking account every month into my personal account through our payroll is I like that the channel can now fund itself. So since it is not presently a sole source of income, I can leave money in there, and then when I do need something like a microphone or a light or a new subscription or whatever, it's just right there. I can just use that money to cover those costs. The channel will fund itself. And in some cases, you can make that money back. I try, honestly, not to get too into this way of thinking. For example, I bought this Shure microphone. I think it cost $250 was the total, $260. I plan to make a video about it because it's super cool. That video over time, in theory, just through ad revenue, could earn more than $260, which would mean the microphone paid for itself. It takes a long time to do that, especially through ad revenue. I guess you could throw in affiliate revenue and stuff, but just for frame of reference for that kind of thinking, I'm not big on that because it's such a long game. So I believe it's the second most viewed video on my channel is the Rodecaster Pro review, just my straight on review of it right after I got the Rodecaster about 2 years ago. So that video's been live on my channel for 2 years. It has 313,000 views. And it has made in that entire time, I guess it didn't have ads going on it the whole time. But the last year that it's had ads running on it, it has generated $1,300 in ad revenue with skippable ads before and after the video, no mid-rolls, no unskippable ads, $1,300, which is great because the Rodecaster costs $600. So $1,300 minus 6 means that video's actually made $700 and paid for the cost of the Rodecaster. The problem is it's over 2 years. Like $700 spread over 2 years is not a lot of money. So, I don't know. That's why it's hard for me to play those justifying kind of games. Like, yeah, but this video will earn $1.03 every day. So by the year 2026, this thing will pay for itself. It's like, I'd rather, what's the saying? A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush or whatever. I'd rather just work with concrete things that I actually have. But anyway, those are the actual things there. It's great when your endeavor, your business, your hobby, whatever it is, can actually start sustaining itself. That's been pretty amazing. Like, not just for small things, like it makes me very happy when I know that I'm paying $15 about $15 a video for captions, but I know that video is going to make more than $15 in ad revenue, and that means the video itself is covering the cost of the captions. That's a pretty easy one to do. But for bigger things, like, bigger pieces of gear, bigger ideas, potentially, like, if the world ever opens back up and I wanted to travel to a conference, go to something like Vid Summit or whatever, something like that, like the channel could potentially cover those costs, which would be really, really cool. The last two things that I'll leave you with is, one, just kind of reiterating how helpful this has been for me to go through these past 3 episodes. I knew all this stuff, and some of it was kind of formalized. Like I had my spreadsheet with all the revenue and everything. But really breaking it down has been incredibly helpful. And even if you're not doing it for a podcast episode, I kind of recommend you do the same thing I did. Like, look at your structure of how you're handling your business, your creative endeavor. Look at how you're handling revenue and why you're getting those different sources. Was it sometimes someone once told me for some things the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So maybe you're putting a lot of effort into something, but the revenue you're getting back just really isn't worth it, or you're paying a bunch of money. Like if I was paying $267 a year for the scheduling software to schedule consultations, but I was only making, one consultation every 3 months or something, that might not be worth it. So that's been really, really helpful, just eye-opening for me. It's the same reason in the past I've talked about my media kit, which is on my website, and I update that every month. And that's just with like channel statistics and things. It's cool to have. Like, I don't know how many people actually look at the media kit. I guess I could look at the statistics. But what I know is that for me, it's actually been incredibly helpful every month when I go in and update it. And you could do the same thing without having an official media kit. But just kind of looking at like, oh, look, this was my average watch time last month. This was my view duration last month. This is it this month. And you can see the numbers go down, the numbers go up. Oh, wow. Last month, for some reason, like I got so many more comments than this month. What was I doing that was making things more engaging? And it doesn't mean that you have to like live by those numbers. It doesn't mean you have to manipulate anything. It is just kind of cool to see these different trends. And I'm somebody who had no interest in doing that, but over the time of just kind of dipping my toe in, bit by bit, it has actually become pretty enjoyable. So I recommend sort of tracking these trends and really looking at doing what I am doing now and taking a look at all these different things. And the other thing, if you're not doing this already, which if you have sort of a large up and running endeavor, you probably are, but if you're still kind of smaller or you're getting started, you might not be. I think it is very important to track your revenue and your expenses. Even if you're small, obviously that's, if you're running a business, you probably know that. But even if you have a small channel, like, a few hundred subscribers, maybe you don't feel like you're getting a ton of views, maybe you don't feel like you're making any money, but I think it's important to keep track of what you're spending. If you are buying equipment for your channel, if you are investing in services, your software, your subscriptions for your channel, keep track of that stuff. If your channel does start generating revenue, keep track of that. If you're in an affiliate program, just to have an idea. Doesn't even mean you need to do anything with that data or that information, but just getting in the habit of keeping track for it, I think is, it's a very responsible thing to do to build a foundation so that if the time comes that things start to grow larger, you're going to be ready to handle it. more effectively, and you're not going to have to figure out this stuff on your own. You hear those stories sometimes of people who are like, oh, my channel went from, 2,000 subscribers to 400,000 subscribers in 6 weeks because something just went crazy. And in a lot of cases, those instances of explosive growth, while it sounds like something, oh man, who wouldn't want that? You kind of hear a lot of horror stories. It's almost like winning the lottery, where it forces people to have to just figure so many things out so fast in ways they just really weren't prepared for, that in a way, it almost sounds like it's a double-edged sword, I guess you could say. And so that's why I think it's very important, even if you're smaller, to have these things in place. When I put together my media kit like over a year ago, I did an episode about it, and I mentioned that the first time I ever even heard about what a media kit was from someone I was in like a YouTube group with online. We had like a Discord several years ago, like 3 years ago or something. And he had a pretty small channel that was, a couple hundred subscribers. And he was like obsessed with like media kits and figuring all this stuff out. And I was like, I'm not interested in at all what you guys are talking about, because we're just figuring out what kind of videos we're making. We're not even like at that level yet. But he was really on board with it. And then something happened with his channel, and now he's close to 300,000. It's been his full-time job for like a year and a half, 2 years. And what I saw happen was that as the growth started increasing, because he had all these things in play when his channel was just getting started and small, he was so well equipped to handle that growth, and it didn't destroy his channel. It didn't mess him up. It really made things more sustainable, helped keep everybody's sanity, helped ease some anxieties and stuff like that. And that was a great lesson for me to see is, you can start doing this stuff early, and the worst thing it's going to do is just help you stay organized. But the best thing is it can provide this really great foundation. So I probably don't need to go on a crazy philosophical rant about that. But I hope this was interesting. I hope this was helpful. I know I've said this every week now for the past 3 weeks. I know this sort of feels like a little bit dry to just sort of go down numbers and lists and things. But if you're somebody, words are hard. This is the stuff I kind of wish I could have seen or heard a few years ago when I was like having some of these questions. And even now, people make these sorts of videos on YouTube and stuff. And sometimes they're good, but a lot of times it is very sort of flashy, clickbaity, or just like a lot of times you'll see somebody who's like, look, I had a video that got millions of views, but it only made tiny amount of money. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Ad revenue is not going to be enormous from one video, but like that's not the full picture of running something like this. And so I'm hoping that I can at least paint the full picture from somebody in my position, doing YouTube while also having a full-time job with a channel that has, pretty like healthy rate of growth, but has not been like, I have not gone from, I've not gained hundreds and hundreds of thousands of subscribers in a month or anything like that. So, I just hope that's helpful. I'd love to know what you think. It'd be interesting now. I don't know where to go from here. We did the trilogy. I guess I could do the prequels. No, I won't. I won't ruin the original trilogy. But anyway, if you haven't heard the other two, I definitely recommend you go back and listen to those. I would love to hear some feedback about this and if it was helpful, what you thought. If you have any other questions, if you're listening and you notice like, Tom, you didn't bring up this giant thing, like there's a big plot hole that I missed or something, absolutely let me know. Or if you have another question, like something I didn't clarify, let me know too. I would really love to hear it. You can always reach out to me at SoDarnTom on all the things. And of course, YouTube, or send me an email, tom@himynameistom.com, which is a very fun URL to say. So as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope to see you next week.